What if the biggest story in modern history was officially handed to the public and almost nobody noticed? While millions were caught up in political debates, celebrity drama, and the non-stop news cycle, a quiet transmission on May 8th, 2026, changed everything. Buried deep inside official records were 161 declassified documents pulled directly from America's most powerful institutions. The Department of War submitted 82 files, the FBI turned over 56, NASA added 12, and the State Department included 8 more. Together, these records described repeated encounters with objects that the Pentagon's most advanced systems simply could not identify. These were not casual sightings or equipment glitches, but phenomena tracked by state-of-the-art sensors, monitored across multiple platforms, and left completely unexplained. This is where the story shifts from entertaining mystery to something deeply uncomfortable. The United States has spent decades building the most sophisticated surveillance network on Earth, using satellites that read fine details from orbit, radars that track stealth aircraft from impossible distances, and naval monitoring scanning the oceans every second. Almost nothing escapes this net. Yet, hidden inside these newly released records were trajectory patterns that violated every known limit of human aerospace engineering. That completely changes the core question. The mystery is no longer whether something strange was detected, but why it took a forced transparency mandate for the government to finally admit that trained military personnel encountered things they genuinely could not explain. These were not anonymous internet users making wild claims. They were pilots, intelligence officers, radar operators, and scientists trusted with national security. People trained to identify threats under extreme pressure saw the exact same impossible behavior over and over again. The forensic trail starts with an undeniable fact. On May 8th, 2026, the United States government officially acknowledged that its defense agencies had been collecting data on unidentified anomalous phenomena for decades. For the first time, an American administration ordered intelligence agencies to release actual classified records regarding UFOs and potential extraterrestrial intelligence. What emerged was not instant clarity, but a picture of systematic observation mixed with institutional confusion. Military installations across multiple continents had documented these events. FBI records pointed to investigations tied to national security concerns, while NASA documented unusual observations during space operations. Then came the physical evidence: 28 high-resolution photographic records and 14 video files that could be measured, analyzed, and tested against known physics. But immediately, another layer of mystery emerged. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna had explicitly requested the release of 46 specific videos. Those specific recordings, believed to hold the highest level of visual detail, never reached the public. They were withheld behind additional reviews and bureaucratic vetting. Why would the government delay footage if it only contained weather balloons or optical illusions? If these were standard aircraft, there would be no reason for extended classification. Yet the highest resolution evidence remains hidden. Scientists connected to Harvard's Galileo project immediately began analyzing the released materials using strict scientific methodology. By triangulating distances, acceleration rates, spatial coordinates, and movement patterns, they tested whether these objects fit within the structural limits of modern human engineering. The calculations revealed acceleration profiles that far exceeded current aerospace capabilities. Standard fighter pilots can endure 4 to 6 G-forces before risking blackout, and human consciousness fails near 9 Gs. Human aircraft are designed entirely around these physical limitations. Yet, the declassified data contained 22 documented anomalies showing acceleration patterns between 9 and 27 times what human physiology can survive. This leaves only 2 possibilities. Either secret human technology exists at a level that completely redefines known physics, or these craft were not built by humans at all. The deeper researchers analyzed the timeline, the stranger the official record became. One declassified document contained a 1947 letter written to the Chief of Staff of the Air Force regarding flying discs. This was an official communication between high-ranking military officers nearly 80 years before the 2026 release, proving that defense personnel were tracking these anomalies long before modern drone technology existed. The historical pattern that followed was consistent: silence, high classification, and strict compartmentalization. Witnesses were debriefed, radar files vanished into secure archives, and the public narrative was steered toward ridicule and dismissal. Yet, serious intelligence agencies do not spend decades collecting telemetry on things they know to be fake. The sheer volume of records proves something real was occurring behind closed doors. The critical question is no longer whether these incidents happened, but what remains hidden inside the locked archives, and specifically within those 46 withheld videos. The most disturbing element of the 2026 declassification was not what the government revealed, but what it kept hidden. Buried underneath the public files was a growing realization among investigators that the missing evidence mattered more than the released data. Those 46 locked videos, held back despite direct congressional requests, reportedly contain the clearest visual evidence captured by military sensors over the last several decades. Governments do not withhold harmless footage unless the material creates massive operational or public consequences. According to the released telemetry, analysts repeatedly flagged these specific recordings because the tracked objects displayed movement patterns impossible to replicate with conventional aerospace physics. This is where the subject moves beyond vague reports into measurable, multi-sensor data. Combining the 3IATLAS framework with the Galileo project's analysis, researchers focused on multi-platform verification. Radar data alone can contain technical errors, and video footage can occasionally create optical illusions. However, when radar tracking, thermal imaging, visual confirmation, and electromagnetic readings all match simultaneously, the chance of simple misidentification drops to near zero. Researchers found multiple instances where objects were tracked across several independent sensor systems while performing impossible maneuvers. They executed sharp, right-angle turns at extreme speeds without slowing down, hovered completely stationary above oceans during heavy winds, and accelerated from a dead stop to thousands of miles per hour in seconds without emitting thermal signatures. That lack of thermal signature is a critical detail. Every known propulsion system on Earth produces detectable heat and displacement. Jet engines produce immense thermal output, rockets leave combustion trails, and hypersonic vehicles generate massive friction against the atmosphere. The laws of aerodynamics dictate that high-speed transit through the atmosphere comes with physical consequences. Yet, the declassified files describe objects traveling at estimated speeds above 5,000 miles per hour while producing minimal heat, no visible exhaust, and no sonic boom matching their velocity. To defense analysts, this behavior is fundamentally incompatible with standard aerospace engineering. It is the real-world equivalent of watching a solid object cross an entire stadium instantaneously without any visible force pushing it, leaving no heat or sound behind. According to investigators, the unreleased recordings document even more extreme behavior. Some reports describe craft transitioning from the air into the ocean without losing speed or suffering structural damage. Other records detail synchronized formations moving with absolute precision beyond existing automated drone capabilities, including one incident where an object descended from high altitude to sea level in under a second, a maneuver that would instantly break apart any conventional airframe. The redactions inside the released files reveal a clear pattern of intentional concealment. Throughout the documents, key telemetry data was heavily blacked out. Velocity figures were removed, coordinate points were erased, and electromagnetic readouts were classified. Forensic analysts noted that these redactions occurred precisely at the moments when the tracked objects executed their most extreme flight maneuvers. If these occurrences were mundane, total transparency would serve the government's interest. Instead, the selective censoring suggests an active effort to restrict public access to the most definitive performance metrics. There is an operational reason for some of this secrecy. Releasing complete telemetry data can inadvertently expose classified military sensor capabilities, including radar ranges, tracking limits, and detection sensitivities. Protecting operational strengths from geopolitical rivals is standard national security protocol. However, that explanation only answers part of the equation. Even if sensor hardware remains classified, The persistent presence of unexplained objects creating extreme performance profiles presents a far larger issue that spans nearly 8 decades. The 1947 Air Force letter was not an isolated event. Throughout the Cold War, military personnel repeatedly logged encounters with unidentified craft near sensitive locations, including nuclear installations, naval fleets, and restricted airspace. Pilots reported craft outmaneuvering state-of-the-art jets, while radar stations tracked targets that appeared, accelerated instantly, and vanished off scope. Publicly, official channels maintained a consistent response of denial, minimization, and public dismissal. Privately, defense institutions continued to assign significant resources to monitor the phenomenon. Institutions do not create specialized task forces, archive detailed radar files, and coordinate multi-agency tracking for 80 years over simple misunderstandings. This long-term effort points to 2 troubling conclusions. Either authorities maintained secrecy because they fully understood the technology and wished to conceal it, or they maintained secrecy because they had no control over it and could not explain it. If the latter is true, it means the most advanced defense networks on Earth have spent decades tracking high-performance technology operating completely outside human scientific models. This leads directly to the question of intent. If these objects represent advanced non-human technology, why are they present in Earth's atmosphere? While the declassified files offer no explicit conclusions, the spatial patterns in the telemetry are telling. A significant percentage of encounters occurred over open ocean, clustered near strategic military infrastructure, or took place directly around active nuclear facilities. The objects routinely observed human activity at close range without initiating offensive actions, functioning in a manner consistent with systematic observation or long-term intelligence gathering. This observed behavior ties directly into one of the most famous questions in modern science, the Fermi paradox. For decades, researchers have wondered why a universe so vast and ancient shows no obvious signs of intelligent life. If space is filled with potential habitats, the absence of clear signals has long been treated as a mystery. However, the telemetry released in the 2026 declassification suggests a different possibility. Intelligent life may not be absent at all, but humanity may have simply misjudged what real-world contact and observation would actually look like. For over 70 years, humanity has scanned the night sky asking a fundamental question. If the universe is so vast, where is everyone? While it sounds like a simple query, it represents a deep mathematical contradiction. The Milky Way galaxy alone contains approximately 100 billion stars, with modern astronomical data suggesting billions of Earth-like planets orbit within habitable zones capable of supporting liquid water. Beyond our galaxy lie billions of other galaxies. Statistically, the emergence of intelligent life should not be an isolated event. This contradiction was formalized in 1950 by physicist Enrico Fermi, who noted that if spacefaring civilizations were probable, evidence of their existence should be widespread. Scientists have historically proposed several solutions to this paradox. Some argued that intelligent life is extremely rare. Others suggested that civilizations inevitably destroy themselves before reaching interstellar travel. And some proposed the existence of a great filter that prevents species from expanding beyond their home systems. However, following the May 8, 2026 declassification, another framework gained traction. The assumption that an advanced intelligence would announce itself through high-powered radio signals or massive physical invasions may be fundamentally flawed. If military sensors have been tracking objects operating far beyond current human capabilities, the evidence of an advanced presence may have been present in our skies for decades. Understanding this possibility requires considering cosmic timescales. Human industrial civilization is roughly 2 centuries old, and spaceflight began less than 70 years ago. On a cosmic timeline where galaxies evolve over billions of years, human civilization is brand new. A technological species that emerged just 1 million years before humans, a tiny fraction of cosmic time, would possess capabilities completely incomprehensible to modern science. Consider human technological growth over just the last century. We transitioned from basic motorized travel to landing on the moon in a span of 6 decades, and computing evolved from mechanical calculators to advanced global artificial intelligence networks in even less time. When technological progress compounds over hundreds of thousands or millions of years, the resulting capabilities would appear indistinguishable from magic to a younger species. Their energy manipulation, propulsion systems, and transit methods would easily bypass what current human physics considers absolute limits. This context makes the declassified flight profiles far more logical. The tracked craft did not operate like advanced jet engines. They functioned under entirely different physical mechanisms. Instant acceleration without inertia, rapid directional shifts without aerodynamic drag, and high-speed atmospheric travel without thermal displacement all point to energy manipulation beyond standard aerodynamic models. Throughout history, concepts once deemed scientifically impossible regularly became reality once the underlying physics was understood. Human flight, nuclear energy, and global satellite communication were all declared impossible right up until they were engineered. The anomalous flight characteristics recorded by military systems may not violate physics at all, but rather demonstrate applied physics that human science has yet to master. If these anomalies represent technology engineered by a far more advanced intelligence, their behavior pattern becomes logical. The declassified files describe craft that do not engage in hostile acts, make public demands, or attempt force. Instead, they observe, record, and monitor critical infrastructure, military maneuvers, naval forces, and energy sites before departing without a trace. This operational profile closely mirrors standard long-term scientific surveillance or strategic reconnaissance. This raises the key question of why world governments would maintain strict secrecy around these encounters for nearly 80 years. The primary driver is institutional stability. Modern governments depend on the public perception of complete security and operational control. National defense agencies are built to monitor airspace, evaluate threats, and protect territorial integrity. Admitting that unknown craft regularly enter restricted airspace with complete impunity directly undermines the perceived authority of defense networks. Furthermore, confirming the presence of an advanced, non-human technology carries unprecedented global societal implications. Social structures, religious institutions, financial markets, and scientific frameworks are all built around humanity's self-contained understanding of its place on Earth. A formal acknowledgement of a superior intelligence operating freely within Earth's biosphere would instantly alter that baseline framework. The decades of classification were likely driven less by a coordinated global conspiracy and more by institutional confusion, as agencies struggled to manage phenomena they could consistently track, but could neither control nor explain. The released files consistently show defense agencies collecting massive amounts of telemetry, conducting detailed scientific evaluations, and cataloging sightings, yet arriving at no firm public conclusions. The institutional apparatus was simply unprepared to integrate data that sat outside standard scientific and defense models. This dynamic makes the withheld evidence, specifically the 46 unreleased high-resolution videos, even more critical. According to individuals familiar with classified briefings, these unreleased recordings contain unambiguous, high-definition visual tracking of craft executing extreme maneuvers simultaneously captured on multiple sensor arrays. Once high-resolution footage of that nature enters the public domain, the legacy narrative of optical illusions and weather phenomena completely collapses. The global discussion permanently shifts from asking whether these objects exist to addressing what they are and why they are here. The May 8, 2026 declassified release appears to mark the start of a structured disclosure process, a deliberate, phased strategy designed to gradually introduce high-impact information to the public in manageable increments to prevent widespread disruption. Institutions rarely release deeply disruptive information all at once. They introduce it in controlled phases to allow public perception to adapt over time. The historical trajectory of this topic follows a clear pattern. Initial complete denial, followed by cautious acknowledgments of unexplained phenomena, leading to the release of vetted sensor data and ultimately preparing the public for broader revelations. Given the mathematical telemetry already confirmed in the 2026 records, the release of the remaining withheld footage will mark a decisive point in public understanding, presenting visual evidence of engineering that standard aerospace models cannot dismiss. Ultimately, the 2026 declassification was not just about strange objects in the sky. It was about the management of information and public perception. For nearly 8 decades, reports of anomalous aerial phenomena followed a predictable cycle. Military witnesses provided detailed accounts, radar tracking logs surfaced, and pilots reported extreme craft performance, only for official statements to minimize the events while public discourse dissolved into jokes. Yet behind the scenes, high-level data collection never stopped. If defense agencies genuinely believed these encounters were mere instrument errors or misidentified commercial craft, they would not have dedicated 8 decades of funding, personnel, and classified archives to monitoring them. The underlying reality suggested by the declassified record is that institutions were forced to confront a profound lack of control. National security frameworks operate on the premise that global airspace is understood and defended. Admitting that advanced objects routinely navigate restricted airspace without authorization exposes a fundamental limit in conventional defense capabilities. By maintaining strict classification, authorities preserve the perception of absolute control while quietly attempting to analyze the technology in secret. Now that official records have confirmed multi-sensor tracking of anomalies that exceed human physiological and structural limits, the baseline conversation has fundamentally changed. The data demonstrates that for 80 years, military systems have logged encounters with craft operating on principles far beyond current human engineering. As more telemetry is brought to light and the remaining locked records are eventually exposed, humanity is forced to confront a reality long buried under layers of official secrecy. We are no longer just looking up at the stars and asking if anyone is out there. We are reading our own official records and realizing the answer has been flying through our skies all along. If you want to stay ahead of the latest declassified intelligence updates and deep dive investigations into these world-changing releases, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop your thoughts in the comments below.